Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively. And you also need to be careful with your computer's defense as well. If you need a VPN, go Nord. NordVPN.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. So put in some dot balls and turn them into maidens via NordVPN.com/Kimber. Welcome to the scoreboard. What do you say about a game like this? A wicket that was a little bit tricky, but then it seemed impossible when it probably shouldn't have been. But to the naked eye, it actually never looked that tough. I do think it was a little bit worse than that, but still, you know, not 89 all out. There are some things worth noting from the Titans anyway. I felt early on that their batting just looked a little bit short, and the fact that David Miller had to come in at number 4, that's something worth noting all the way through. And also, if you're going to have a team that has a lot of anchors in it, isn't this the exact wicket you want them to get you 135 or 140 so that you have a chance of actually bowling to it? The other thing I thought was weird is it seemed harder to play spin on this wicket, yet the majority of the wickets went to pace in the end. In fact, Kuldeep didn't even take a wicket. So it might have been that it was harder to play finger spin than anything else. Or is it possible that this was just a pitch where perfectly set up for Tristan Stubbs to bowl down the leg side? We'll never know. So it was tricky, but not 89 all out tricky. And maybe the Titans' biggest mistake, other than their actual team lineup, might be that Sudarashan ran himself out. And I have questions though. Why didn't Rashid bowl himself earlier? Why was Hope sent out at all? What was going on with Mohit's shot? And why couldn't I have done the live for the good game yesterday? You're here with the scoreboard. I'm Jared Kimber. Let us get to this scoreboard. Remember, if you want to ask any questions, it might be a good day for questions because let's be honest, we don't have all that much. I mean, if we'd done yesterday, we might have had 50 graphics, and today we might have like 7. But big thanks to everyone who's here again, as always. But let us get over to the scoreboard part of the show. And if you want to ask a question, Super Chat is the best way to go. But anything in the comments is lovely. Terrified I'm going to miss, like... Yeah, no, I'm just making sure I didn't. This is true values in the power play so far this season. So this is Ishant Sharma. This is from 5 overs. I actually didn't think he bowled that bad today. Got them on top early on. And I'm interested in this. There's some interesting bowlers here because you can see that Reece Topley's here from one big over, really, or maybe it's a couple of big overs, but I actually think Reece Topley's been quite good in the power play. So I do wonder if you can just get caught out once or twice and it can change things. And Ishant hasn't played all the way through, but he's 2 runs worse than what a normal player would be. And he's also taking wickets at far less of a rate than anyone else would. And, you know, we're not expecting him to be Bumrah, but like someone like Curran, who's going to take less wickets than normal, is where you want an experienced player to be. But even, you can see up here, Umesh Yadav is a very similar bowler to Ishant Sharma in many, many different ways. And as in, can't really bowl him at the death. Maybe you can bowl a little bit in the middle, but essentially has to bowl up front with a new ball for you to get anything off him. He's getting, you know, 0.4 of a wicket more than what we would expect. And Sharma's pretty much a wicket worse than him per 24 balls. The bad economy is one thing, but I thought there were signs today that was okay. But this is Khalil Ahmed, who I've been really impressed with many times so far this year. He's got 5 wickets. His true economy here, so he's 0.6 runs of an over better. You take that if he can handle that all year. And he's taking wickets. It's a really good place for a young bowler to be. You can see it just around him. Fizzer has had a really good year. Trent Bolt is in there as well. We don't need him. Even someone like Gerald Coetzee, even if he slips back to where Gerald Coetzee is, I think that's a plus. The problem is, of course, that they need 2 guys to be able to do it, and that is the issue at the moment. And Mukesh Kumar, bowling average by IPL season. So in 2023, he was averaging 41, and so far he's averaging 16. Now, who am I to say which one is better? But I really like the way he's bowled this year. I don't know how other people have felt about it. Like, even the average, I had no idea the average was that low, but a few times I've just watched him and just thought to myself, like, he came on today and he bowled about 2 balls. And you know, when the bowler comes on sometimes and you're not 100% sure if they've bowled an over before, but and so I looked at it and I was like, he's only bowled 2 balls, and I already feel really comfortable with him. And it just feels like he really knows his role, and the ball's coming out of his hand really well. Obviously, that average is going to regress a little bit, but it's a great start to the season so far for him. And this is Kuldeep. Kuldeep had an interesting day today, actually, because I'm not sure that the wicket particularly helps him all that much, helped him as much as it did the faster wrist spinners or their finger spinners. It certainly helped Tristan Stubbs. But you can see here that Kuldeep against top order players, top 3, this is a mild negative. He's not massively terrible against the top 3 players. And remember, top 3 is usually your 3 best batters. Not always, but certainly more often than not. You know, that's where the strength of your batting lineup is. And you can see he's maybe the way he dismisses them is a little bit lower than what you want. But once he gets to that middle order, that's a big jump up for me. You know, 41 wickets, true economy of, what's that, 0.3 runs and over better than a normal player. That's pretty good. And, you know, 0.26, you know, a quarter of a wicket more than what a normal player would be. And once he gets to the end, he's absolutely unhittable. That bit's not surprising, and that is what left-arm wrist spinners are known for, is, you know, tail killers. They're very, very good. You know, in Test cricket, if you can get an all-rounder who even bowls a few overs of it, their ability to go through tails is great. So you'd expect him to dominate this, and most players would have a similar kind of arc of not as good as against the top 3 and everything else. But it is interesting to me that he's a mild negative against the top 3, and then a pretty solid positive. And he's got... and he hasn't bowled to the tail all that much anyway. He didn't get a wicket today, did he? Am I right? I think that's right. Which I thought was interesting, just because I kind of expected him to. That was kind of what I kept waiting for. In fact, they kept losing wickets early on, and I kept thinking to myself, yeah, but eventually what's going to happen here is he's going to come on and completely end the game. And instead, it was maybe Akshar and Stubbs who looked like the more likely to get the wickets. This is Kuldeep Yadav economy rates in the IPL by season. So you can see here 8.29, 8.1, 8.67, 8.44. This is what you expect from an attacking wrist spinner. Also, left arm finger spinners usually have a slightly higher economy rate than right arm wrist spinners, just because the right arm wrist spinners are spinning the ball away from the bat a little bit more. So there's nothing wrong with that. But 7.37 is quite exceptional, really. And it's, again, early on in the season. Let's see how these things go. Sorry, this is last season. I just realized this. I should have looked up this season as well when I saw this graphic, and now I've forgotten to. But the point is that this is kind of an attacking bowler, which is a strike bowler that can go for a little bit more runs. This is when you're getting to that elite sort of Rashid Khan, Chahal, Imran Tahir, where if you can match wickets and economy, you're an absolute banker. And most players are pretty good at one thing or another, and the greats are the ones who have the ability to go both ways. And what sometimes happens is teams are just sick and tired of getting out to you, right? So they're just like, well, we're going to play fewer shots, and because of that, you're not going to get as many wickets in the future. This is the one I was looking for. It was in that graph, and I had forgotten that it was already there. Thanks to Varun and Cheyenne for putting all these together. So far this year is going at a run a ball. All right. Unwritten Norkia is going at 2 runs a ball. Unwritten Norkia, but this is not true economy rates or anything like that. You got Hardik Pandya, you got another leg spinner up here, Unad Kat, Markandi. This is, let's have a look at this end. That guy looks good. Akshar Patel, who also think it's one thing I really like about their bowling. It's just they just need some death bowling and one more, and they need Khalil and Mukesh to continue having years, and maybe just one more guy. But you got Narayan up here as well. Harpreet, who's done well but on low usage, and then you got Partharana. So pretty much everyone up here is a really good bowler in really good form. There's no surprise there. But you don't really expect a left arm wrist spinner who in previous years has had an economy of 8s and 7s to be at this point. I still expect him to go closer to 7s this year. Today it's probably something that helped him a little bit more, of course. Those sorts of games you can get ahead of it and everything else. But also he's hard to hit on a wicket like this. And so I think it's fascinating to see where he goes from here. And I really like this. This is balls bowled per match in white ball cricket. So you can see Tristan Stubbs bowls just under 2 overs a match in List A cricket. He bowls, what's that? 1 over every 3 games at best in T20 cricket. I thought it was really interesting when he came on because it's the sort of thing that for those of us who are old enough who've been watching, T20 cricket for a long time, you kind of saw these things a lot more early on, which is you would have like a swing bowler or something and you'd give a medium pacer a swing bowler because the ball's swinging. And you're just like, well, our best swing bowler's this guy. So let's just give him an over and see if he can get an edge. And the same with spinners. And you had these random people. I remember Ben Dunk, who was a wicketkeeper in the Big Bash, bowling in one game. And you're just like, okay, that's something. And then as we've gone through, that sort of 7th/8th bowler that you use in an emergency has disappeared. So I kind of love that Tristan Stubbs bowled. I think he bowled a full toss and I was like, oh, this could be a really nasty over if they get after him here because they're so on top. And then I think he hit a 4, got a stumping, and then got the other stumping. Also, let's talk about Rishabh Pant stumping because this is fun. He was so confident of that stumping and he fumbled the ball. And I'm not sure he could have seen that the ball hit the stumps before. And maybe he did, but just from where his hands were, all credit to him. And Tristan Stubbs gets great figures and only bowls 1 over. So well done to him. This is the Gujarat Titans today. Saha looked, it's incredible. You bring a player back in, and when you see players come back in, quite often they're in really good form. And the reason is that everyone's watched them in the nets. I think this was more to do with just the structure of the side. And probably they've been seeing the same thing I have, a lot of one-pace players. So they brought Saha back in. He looked dreadfully out of touch. Now, we know the longer the game went on, the more we could say the wicket played a big part. But even so, it looked like it would be a surprise if he made it to 8 runs. I thought Gill played a beautiful shot through the leg side before going out. This is the one that's got to hurt though, right? The run out. Oh, absolutely dreadful stuff. Miller tried to get away with a caught behind and didn't. But I love the fact that Rashid did this. And it's funny, on a wicket like that, that kind of chaos batting is sometimes really, really hard to plan against. The inconsistent bowling goes up against the inconsistent batting, or the inconsistent bounce, I suppose you should say. Also worth pointing out that 13% of their runs were extras, and they still didn't make it to 100. But let's just go on to the other innings here. So this is Jake Fraser-McGurk strike rates in white ball cricket. So in List A cricket, this is before today. In List A cricket, it was 143, and in T20, it was 135. I think we all knew that he was going to blow through that. I still have an issue about how long he can bat and how many runs and how long he can stay in. We've seen a lot of these sort of Finn Allen, Tristan Stubbs type players. Fraser-McGurk, I just think I need to know a lot more about him before I'm 100% in. But he could be a very, very low a very, very high ceiling and a very low floor type of player. Because if you take a chance on a player like that, and he does come off and he can average even 25. He might be able to average 25 at a strike rate of 170 or 180, the way he hits the ball. His eye is ridiculous. I was talking to Barry Richards the other day, and he described Viv Richards as having an eye like a dead fish. I think he said dead fish. Might have been fish, and I've added it for no reason. But some players just see the ball, very, very clearly. And you watch Fraser-McGurk, and you can see that part of him. How is he against the top level bowlers once they start to work him out and everything else? That's where my questions come in, just because he hasn't made a lot of runs beforehand. But I love watching him play. It's absolutely fun watching him slog. And these are the highest strike rates. So obviously Porrell did okay as well. This is the interesting one though, surely, right? Shai Hope. I still don't really understand why Shai Hope was sent out there. My son watched about 15 minutes of this game when Hope was batting. He's now convinced Shai Hope's the greatest T20 player of all time. But I did think it was interesting. And then Rashid, what I liked about Rashid's batting, just to get back to before, it didn't matter in the end. Once Mo decided to smack that ball, they were always going to be in a bit of trouble. But I thought what I liked about Rashid was he provided some chaos and some hitting, but then also batted very smart around that. But that's it for the scoreboard today, because, what else am I going to give you? We'll take a quick break here. If you've got any super chats, and if you do, you are a proper cricket sadist. But I'll have a break and I'll go through the normal comments as well. And then we'll be back in a couple of moments with the rest of the scoreboard. I'm Jared Kimber. This is brought to you by Cricket 8. They are a new player in the game trying to educate fans on what is really happening in cricket. We have a partnership with them where we host live watch-alongs, do podcasts, and write articles. If you want to know what is really happening with our game, visit cricket8.com. If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now. All right, welcome back. There's a couple of questions here I'll get to. Not so much about this game, of course, because there isn't much about this game. But there's a couple of questions, and then let's all have an early night, right? Hunt says, the wicketkeeper conundrum for India is fascinating. On one hand, you have the most informed player in DK. On the other hand, you have an anchor in Rahul, and then Samson, and then the most talented keeper batsman in Pant. I think you're right. I think it's fascinating. I don't think you can play KL Rahul just because of the Kohli Rohit thing. I just can't see how you can play all three. DK's in the best form, and maybe with Hardik Pandya and Jadeja not smashing, I think someone might have asked this on a podcast, or I feel like I've answered someone else's question about this. DK makes more sense. Samson, I really like Samson. I just don't think he's quite at that level in a World Cup situation compared to the other guys on pure talent. And I'm a huge fan of him, but I'm not sure. And then you have Pant. And where do Pant maybe makes the most sense because he's the best player. But is this the Pant, we're all hoping for at the moment? Is he also a bit, I don't want to say an anchor, but anchorish? I don't know. Darshan says, I can't see Delhi go above MI in the power rankings next week. What a terrible season for them. Yeah, I can't get too far ahead of myself in the power rankings because we've only had 2 games since then. Although, to be fair, I think there was a lot of anger with the KKR thing, and I said they weren't quite as good as Rajasthan, and I kind of still stick with that. And it's that I don't trust their bowling all that much. Let's have a look at Mumbai though. I'm going to put this on another screen so I can actually read it. So Delhi's 3 and 4 from 7, and Mumbai 6 and 2. Yeah, I kind of feel with Delhi, that's a really good game. But if you were playing a team tomorrow, you'd be more worried about playing Mumbai still. But there were things about Delhi, I like the 2 spinners working together. They can get 2 Indian seamers working. If Fraser McGurk can keep Fraser McGurking. Tristan Stubbs has been in really good form. There are little bits of Delhi's team I kind of like. But you compare that to Bumrah, and you have Kotsia and Bumrah and Mumbai. I think I said compare that to Bumrah. I meant Mumbai, although did I? You have the 2 bowlers, and then you have all that 6 hitting capability, that depth. I still think teams are going to fear that more. It doesn't mean that Delhi don't end up better on the points table. But yeah, if you're asking me right now, I still think that Delhi are a bigger chance. But 3 and 4 for Delhi, you're taking that. I think coming in, I'm trying to think if this is right. I think coming in, they were one of the most heavily bet teams to come last. And I can't remember if it was them or Punjab. I'm getting confused. Punjab, was it Delhi? I can't remember. But they're in a position now where they've done better than that, which is something. Rahul says, how did GT think their batting would actually work? I don't think they have any top-level T20 talents apart from Gill and Miller. Yeah, so if you go back to, it might have been this first or second, it might have been the first power list. I said that my issue with them really was that if Gill doesn't make 600 runs and Miller doesn't make 450 runs, I don't really see how they are going to win games consistently. I love their bowling. It's not perfect, but I really, really like it. I like the way it comes together. The two wrist spinners and the back of the hand slower ball bowler and everything else. So I do enjoy that part of it, but they have to get scores that are at least. I think if you're going to have a defensive bowling lineup, which is kind of what it is, right? The two best bowlers are defensive bowlers, and then you have Noor Ahmed and you have Spencer Johnson, who's still finding his way, right? So of those top four bowlers, Noor Ahmed and Spencer Johnson can take wickets, but haven't been taking a lot so far. The other two bowlers are more defensive orientated bowlers, which is fine. But then you need your batting to be batting above par, and I think you look at this and you're like. So coming into the game today, the odds had them as favorite. And I originally thought, oh, that's not a bad price for Gujarat. They were like 180-ish or 175, 180. They're at home. And then they started to bat. And like instantly I was like, oh, no. I don't trust this side at all. And I don't trust them to get enough. And then they collapsed and it didn't matter. And I was right. And these things, usually I'm wrong. So I'll take that one. And so you look at that, and I just felt like this real uncomfortableness with their batting. And once David Miller was in early, I don't really understand what they're trying to do. So Sai Sudarshan is fine as a single anchor, but the problem with him is he can't go long. Saha is a hitter, but he doesn't hit that fast, and he also plays short innings. So you've got two guys there that are going to play short innings, and by that I mean they're not going to go deep into the innings that often, in your top three. One guy really doesn't cross 40 all that much, and one guy doesn't cross 20 all that much. And then you've got David Miller coming in. So it reminds me of a junior cricket team where I remember we had a team once where we had three batters we trusted and we didn't have anyone else. And originally they were batting 1, 2, 3. And if we ran into an opening bowler who was hooping the ball around, we were stuffed. So we staggered our batting lineup in order to do that. So we put in a random opener and then we brought in a number 4 who we thought at least could face 20 or 30 balls per innings, even if he didn't make a lot of runs. And it meant that you always had someone to fear when you went up against us. And you look at Gill and Miller coming in early today, and I felt the same thing. I was like, well, what happens if Miller goes out? That's it. Tawatia and Rashid are going to have to bat the rest of the innings. Sharon Tank says, did KKR throw the game with their death bowling yesterday, or was it genius batting? They don't have good death bowling. I've said before, Mitchell Starc is absolutely fine if he's going up against average players at the death. Once he goes up against great players at the death, everyone's going to have a poorer record against those two things because that's how talent works, right? But I think his is more dramatic. I think so that was an issue. The other guys that they had were just are just not. There's who, like, outside of Starc, who's the guy you kind of want to be bowling at the death? It's probably Narain, right? So again, you've got an issue there. But it was genius batting. It was genius batting for a couple of reasons. One, Butler let Rovman Powell go first, and that's the right move in that situation. I don't always like the set batter letting the other guy go, but when you have no other batting, you say to Rovman Powell, look, if you can get us 30 off 10 here, I can get us home with the tail. Whereas if I go really hard here, then you're not even set yet. And so we've got nothing left to go. So I like that. Then I like the fact that Butler decided to face all the balls at the end. And, that's something that it still makes some cricket fans uncomfortable. And, we've seen it in Test cricket and all these different things. But I thought that was, again, a really good move. And, when we're talking about that game, I put money on Rajasthan at 10-1. 9-1, actually, I think I got them at, or roughly around there. Because with Butler being there and the death bowling being matched up together, and Rovman was out there at that stage as well. I don't think he'd hit a boundary when I put the bet on, or maybe he'd hit one or two. I was just looking at it going, this is a really good matchup. what do they do if Butler gets on one? And there was no great answer other than you hope Mitchell Stark is reverse swinging it. And we've seen him reverse swing it once in this tournament, I reckon, at the end. And it was fading more than reverse swing. That's tricky. Harsh says, should white dukes be used for T20 games? Because the way the games are going, we might either see a team score 300, Nepal has already, or an individual. Should it be used in ODIs? I don't think the white dukes is a great ball, because I don't think they've spent all that much time doing it. They don't get used all that much. So you would have to invest in dukes to hope they make a better ball. It's a weird question that you've asked me on a day, Harsh, where a team's been bowled out for 89. Look, I think run rates are going to go up regardless, right? We had a delivery called the wobble ball that briefly came in and that slowed everyone down in T20 and ODIs, and then players have gone straight past it again. The new Kookaburra ball is actually a new ball that is helping bowlers more, and it doesn't matter. But if you ask, I mean, I would, if this game was run correctly, I would buy Dukes and Kookaburra and probably SG and just say to all of them, let's all share knowledge. Let's create the best cricket balls we can for different locations that do different things that suit everything that we need. And let's control the balls so that if teams are scoring too many runs, we can bring back. So the funny thing is, Harsh, I don't know if you've seen it, but maybe a year or so back, I did a video on how there had been a global drop in runs since Kookaburra had changed their ball. The ICC didn't even know, right? Anyway. Noel says, this question might irritate you. Yes! I don't know what it is. But why was Pant awarded player of the match instead of Mukesh Kumar? Is it because of captaincy? I don't care much about player of the match, obviously. I think that's what you mean, rather than care about the match. I care about the match. I don't care about player of the match at all, because I think... I'll tell you why. I've never voted on player in the match. Many of my friends have. Many of my colleagues obviously have. It gets to the end of the game and a couple of people usually go, who do you think I should give it to? I think you get a lot of really bad decisions. I mean, if Punt gets it for his captaincy, I'm not sure. I thought his captaincy was brilliant, unless we count the stubs over and, you know, I mean, are we really giving him for that over? But yeah, it's probably a weird game to give man of the match to, but I would have given it to Mukesh Kumar. I mean, it's weird though, because his wickets kind of came after the rot, but I thought he bowled spectacularly. So, and he's the main reason that they weren't going to go past 120, 130, right? Box says, sending players like Russell in early if the innings is moving quickly to maintain the run rate is good, but then players who don't have experience hitting from ball one have to bat at the death. Sending players like Russell in early if the innings move quickly to maintain the run rate is good. Yeah, but if it's a pitch where it's already like the death early on, so if you're talking about the KKR game from the other day when they sent him in, if that was all, they were already at death hitting standards, right? And so he goes in, if he makes 60 off 20 there, you're not even having this conversation. So they are trying to maximize those middle overs, knowing that at the death, kind of most players can get you close to 2 runs a ball. So it's not the worst case situation if that happens. And we sometimes see it. We you're right. There are times when that happens. You get players who go in late. But the upside of it is winning the game. So do you want to have do you want to maximize all your players in their role definition, or do you want to send Andre Russell in so that the other team now has to chase 280 on a 220, 230 par wicket? And that's what you can do with an Andre Russell, especially if you've got someone like Sunil Ryan swinging off his tits at the other end, right? Like, that's why teams do it, and it makes a lot of sense when you think about it from that point of view. And then what coaches will say, and your point is valid, Boxwell, but what coaches will say is, at the death, kind of everyone can get the ball away. And at the death, there is a freedom. So even if you send in someone that is not their job, there's probably still going to be a plus batter in that point, just because that's how these things work. It's absolutely fine the way that, I've got no issue with that. And there are many games where what you have said does happen, and you see a team sort of... They're going nuts, then it plateaus at the nuts rate for a while, and then that guy that they send in goes out, and there is a bit of a dip off at the end. but you're not factoring in the idea that they might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8 runs and over better than they would have scored in those other overs because they sent in the guys that do attack. And, you can win a game in the 14th over by making a decision like that. Like if Andre Russell comes off in that Rajasthan KKR game, Rajasthan just wouldn't have got close, right? Like if he'd come in and got a 60 off 20 type of score, that would have just completely supersized the entire innings and, would have taken it to another level. So I've got absolutely no issue with doing it that way. And last one, a super chat from Andy, who says, what's the most important skills for a death bowler? A death bowler is the rarest commodity amongst bowlers. How important is it to have high pace at the death? It's important. What's the most important skills of a death bowler? The fact that you think this is weird because you're asking for skill, but the most important skill is the fact that the bowler thinks they can replicate what they need to replicate. So it doesn't matter if it's a slow ball, if it's a Yorker, if it's a wide Yorker, if it's a surprise bouncer, if it's a back of a length at the hip. What you need to know is that you can replicate whatever ball you need to bowl at a certain point. So I think I did a podcast with Harry Gurney and with Jay Dernbach about these things. I think I'm right. And they will tell you that they know that if they have to hit the wide Yorker, they can hit the wide Yorker. So the biggest skill is that belief in knowing that you can execute the right ball at the right time. And the second biggest skill is wanting to bowl at the death. So probably not exactly the answer you're looking for, Andy, but those are the two most important things. The third one is to have one ball that works. The back of the hand slower ball, the wide Yorker, the cutter that moves a little bit more, the surprise bouncer, an uncomfortable length, weird bounce, whatever it may be. You need one thing that works. You can make a good death bowler from one thing that works, because that's already such a huge plus. If you get 2 or 3 things that work, so you become a Dwayne Bravo type bowler, and if you get 4 or 5 things that work, you're a Jofra Archer or a Jasprit Bumrah death bowler, and you're almost unplayable. And how important is high pace at the death? High pace is really important at the death unless you are playing top order batters, and then it can actually be used against you. But if you're playing against 6, 7, and 8, high pace can be really, really important. But if you're batting against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're not going to worry about that, and they're going to be set by that stage. So it can be really important, but the best death bowlers ever are not particularly the quickest. I mean, Bumrah and Jofra are the obvious ones. Chris Morris certainly being a little bit quicker helped. Lasith Malinga was a great death bowler even when he lost his pace. Dwayne Bravo could bowl at 90 miles an hour on a very good day with the wind when he was young, but probably was more 85 miles an hour. You look at guys like Harry Gurney, like Mohit Sharma, Faulkner, those sorts of players who all had great, little spells. It's more to do with the changes of pace and everything else. It's a really good question. Anyway, that's me done for the day. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming over to the Scoreboard. We'll be back on Friday for our next show. And we have a big feature on Raidu on the main channel, which is either coming out tomorrow or Friday. I don't know which day. But if you haven't seen it, we also did one on the innings where they Sunrisers almost scored 300, which I thought was a really, really interesting piece as well. So worth going over there. But I'm Jared Kimber. This is the Scoreboard, and we will see you again on the flippity flop. If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so that your IP address is set for you to win. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that a cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch hit. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a bowler protects the boundaries in the death overs with nordvpn.com/Kimber.